Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen and non-binary toaster ovens. It's your boy, the Bearded Bandit. Today we're going over what it is exactly I've done to my 3D printer here, all the upgrades and whatnot. So stay tuned to find out more. Now the ROBO R1 Plus is the first printer I have personally owned, but hasn't been the first one I have worked with. The first printer I've used was a PrinterBot Simple Metal, and that was back in 2015, started 2015, and that was quite a journey. Later on, I worked at another company where we had the original Robo, the Kickstarter version, and that thing was rough, but after a few weeks of upgrades, it was a decent printer. We also had the Delta Flux and a SkyTech MakerBot clone. At work, I fell in love with the Kickstarter version of the Robo, the original Robo. At that time, the R1 Plus just came out, so I decided I might as well spring a few extra bucks and get the new Robo, and I've been very, very happy with it. Some of the main reasons why I picked this printer over comparable printers, other comparable printers at the time, is it had the lead screws in the Z, and when I worked at the PrinterBot, that was a major problem, as the Z banding was just absolutely horrendous. So I didn't even want to mess with that, and the lead screws were definitely the way to go. I've never had a problem with them. They've always worked absolutely flawlessly. The next major reason why I picked this machine is the heated bed and the build volume. Coming in at an 8x9 by 10 inch build capacity, the Robo had a much larger build volume than other printers around the same price, and quite frankly had a bigger build volume than most of the printers that were more expensive. I really did enjoy the heated bed. Being able to print with ABS and PETG was definitely an improvement over a non-heated bedded 3D printer. Now, when I first received this printer in the mail, I really didn't mess with it for the first month or two because I really wanted to understand the capabilities and the limits of this printer. As I started getting a better feel for how this printer works and operates, I was able to, find the upgrades that I wanted to use and upgrades that I wanted to put into this printer to improve it. The first upgrades I did not really necessarily improve the printer mechanically, but visually and aesthetically made it look much cleaner and more appealing. Just to let you guys know, I will have a link to a presentation I made about all the upgrades I did onto my Robo that will have more information and more links to where you can either find these 3D models or to the websites where you can purchase some of these materials or upgrades. Now, one of the first upgrades I did here was this deck hole cover. Like I said, mechanically it didn't necessarily improve the printer, but visually and aesthetically I think it cleans up the wires a little bit, makes it look a little bit nicer, and you're not dropping as much stringy bits that are coming off the prints down into the bottom of your printer. Not necessarily a big deal, but I like it. Now the next upgrade that I did was the cable chain carrier. This is a pretty popular upgrade. The one thing I wish I would have known going into it beforehand is that sometimes, the chain can be a pain in the butt. Now I got mine looking pretty right now, but in reality, you move it around a little bit and, chain links come off, and sometimes it can be a pain. Now, I still recommend doing this because I think it just looks nicer, I think it looks cleaner, and when it works nice, it works nice. Again, not really improving the mechanical aspect of the 3D printer, but definitely improving the printer visually. I did do a few other upgrades, such as some 3D printed feet to help lift up the Robo a little bit, so it could cool off the ramp sport a little bit more. But later I just ended up going back to the rubber feet that came with the printer, because the 3D printed feet were sliding around on my glass desk, so oh well. One other upgrade that I did also was the 3D printed spool holder on the top there. I don't know, it's alright. I mean, there's probably more other better ones out there. Now, the first major upgrade that I did do to my Robo was putting an E3D hot end onto the printer. The previous hexagon extruder was, I mean, it was alright, but it was starting to get old and was starting to leak. And I was really, at that point, I was really looking to step up my game in the realm of 3D printing, and the E3D extruders are by far the best extruder on the market that I personally know of, or at least they've been tested and they're reliable and they're widely accepted by the 3D printing community as one of the best extruders available on the market. Now, they are a little bit more pricey than other extruders, where there are pretty comparable alternatives at lower cost, but the E3D is definitely the best way to go. This upgrade was a little tricky because some of the stuff with the E3D and the Robo don't quite exactly match up, where I had to do some modifications onto the X carriage here. There's a vast source of information on the internet that will get you through it pretty easily. One other thing that I did have to do was change some parameters in the firmware. Now, this wasn't really difficult because I've done this before on the original Robo. Basically what you do is you have to tell the firmware now that you're using a different type of thermistor, and you now have a new max temp. Other than that, everything is the same. Pretty simple. Now with the E3D upgrade, one thing that I did have to do was print out a new fan shroud, because the old one was mounted onto the hexagon extruder. And when I removed the hexagon extruder, I had nowhere else to mount the fan, but I did find some great videos on the internet and some great files for a new fan shroud, and those will also be in the presentation that I'll have linked in the description. Now, one of my personal favorite upgrades that I did to this printer was the Gecko-Tech magnetic base and build plate. I think these build surfaces are probably the best you can get on the market right now, as far as I know. But again, they're a little bit more pricey, so maybe not the most ideal for your average day hobbyist. Printing with Gecko-Tech build plates are awesome. You get these beautiful, just glassy bottom layers. I don't know if you can see that on this one, but that's the type of first layer you get with these Gecko-Tech build plates. They're absolutely amazing. I love them. But the one thing that you do got to watch out with these guys is that a poorly calibrated machine, if you are printing too close to the surface, will scrape that build plate. I've done it. I'm sure many other people have done it. It happens, but you can still print on top of the build plate. As you can see, mine's been a little scratched up, but still prints great. If you're really looking into stepping up your game, I recommend Gecko-Tech. Primarily, these build plates are plug and play, where all you gotta do is take out the previous glass build plate and drop in the new one, but I think I had some misalignment with my brackets here, and it didn't quite exactly drop in, so there was a little bit of drilling and sanding going on to get it to work. But other than that, it was a fairly easy conversion. One more thing you got to watch out with these Gecko-Tech build plates is that you won't be able to reach ABS temperatures with your build plate, because the heating element in the Gecko-Tech build plate is a little bit more efficient, and it takes a little bit more energy than the power supply in the Robo can handle. I kind of solved this taking a different route, but Geckotech has said that they will be releasing a upgrade package that comes with the already upgraded power supply. In most cases, the Geckotech build plate is a plug-and-play situation. But being the way I am, while I had it apart, I might as well give her the old once over, eh? But I took a different route, and I wanted my build plate to be a little bit more accurate. I wanted to take some strain off of the board processor itself, because when you start looking into the science behind driving stepper motors with an Adreno, it's yeah, it's not the best. So I wanted to free up as much processing power on my Robo as I possibly can to run the stepper motors. And what I did was I took that whole heated bed system and I made it a separate system. And I have it all powered by a PID controller. I'm going to have a later video where I go a little bit more in depth into what exactly I did and how the PIDs work, but I'm able to keep my temperatures much more stable, resulting in less warping and less contracting and expanding of the material as the build plate temperature goes up and down. After putting this heated bed onto a separate system, I could clearly see in the prints a much more smoother motion, because the board just doesn't have to process any information of the heated bed and can put more processing power towards running G-code. But basically, a quick overview of my PID system is, because this is 1/4 inch aluminum, I was able to drill a hole and tap that hole, and I was able to put a thermocouple into the aluminum base, and a thermocouple is much more accurate than a thermistor and can read a much wider range of temperatures. One that I have in my build plate right now is a K-type thermocouple. Now, after a little bit of zip tie engineering, I got my PID system mostly figured out, where I have a PID controller. I have a solid state relay onto a heat sink and computer fan, and then I have a 24 volt 8 amp power supply. Now, I can only get up to temperatures about 75 degrees and not much higher than that, because I am limited to how strong my power supply is, but in a later date I want to get a stronger one so I can do ABS temperatures. Probably one of the most significant upgrades I did do to my 3D printer was wrapping it in fiberglass. Now, that might sound a little crazy to you guys, but the theory behind it sounded right to me, and I thought I might as well give it a try. With fiberglass, it does a great job of vibration dampening and extra rigidity. The fiberglass that I use has 3 layers, 2 woven layers and 1 chopped strand layer. I use this fiberglass because it was left over from a previous project of mine, and I didn't really want to spend any more money in fiberglass or epoxy, because that stuff, it gets expensive. Also, the theory behind this too is that the fiberglass and epoxy were going to add weight. You lower the amount of vibration that your printer can make. And this is really important for having a really smooth surface finish, or having a bunch of wavy lines. You can just hear by knocking on it how much more solid this printer sounds compared to other 3D printers that may not have this type of reinforcement. The really cool factor to me is with this upgrade, is that I was able to print so much faster without reducing my print quality. At this point, the real weak points of my 3D printer are the linear motion components and the stepper motors, the belt-driven stepper motors. I've got a few things in the works to solve some problems with that, so stay tuned. But if you guys got a Robo, I totally suggest wrapping it in fiberglass. It'll be the best thing you do, and it was pretty easy. It wasn't all that hard. I traced the frame of the Robo, made some stencils, cut out the fiberglass, mixed the 3-to-1 epoxy, let it dry on there, and it was really as easy as that, and probably one of the best upgrades I've done to my 3D printer. Now, one last thing before I go. I'm still exploring more upgrade options for my Robo. If you guys got any ideas, let me know in the comments, because I'm I'm chasing the dragon, baby. I want to have the best prints I possibly can off of a desktop 3D printer. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe. Let me know what you guys thought of my video down in the comments below. Till next time, hombres. He's a bad hombre.